A warm welcome to viewers in Goa, India and abroad to Breaking Barriers Through Dialogue, a platform to discuss issues of importance and subjects that matter. This program is brought to you by CCR TV. The focus of our attention is Communidades. Recently, the government passed a law making 8 amendments to the Code of Communidades. Of these, 3 have kicked up a row, so to speak. The first one concerns the government's powers to take over land. The second one is the government's power to dismiss a committee and appoint an official. And the third is power given to Communidades to appoint private agencies to develop land. And to discuss this matters, we have an eminent panel here with us. We have Tulio D'Souza, who is at the moment the president of Giri Comunidade. And on my right we have Rui da Gama, who is the former president of the Moira Comunidade. And we have Father Visitação Monteiro, who is an expert on Comunidades. He has written a book on the subject. And again on my right we have Advocate Radharao Gracious, who is a well-known advocate from South Goa. And he's also the former MLA from Lotoli. And no picture of the political landscape of Goa would be complete without him in it. And so, Radharao, what are your initial thoughts on this bill that has been passed by the Legislative Assembly?
See, Derek, what happens is this bill or this amendment is just like other amendments being carried out by the government for other laws. You see, generally, when you frame a law, you must have the public interest in mind. And then laws have to be created to serve that interest. But it is my observation over these years, whether it is Comunidade or any other law, when the ministers find that they cannot do what they choose to, amendments are brought in. Like in the Town Planning Act, exactly similar amendments have been brought. And discretion is given to the ministers or through their secretaries to act. And this act also is, this amendment is also the similar thing. I do not think the interest of the components of the Comunidades or the public at large is actually involved in this. So if you just go through them, you'll find, for instance, now that actually may be necessary. There's an amendment where, you see, under the old Communidade code, if I have a landlocked property, I could seek an access through Comunidade land of 5 meters. Now they have increased that to 10 meters. Now I can very well understand that that may even be required, because what happens is under our town planning laws, you require an access of say 10 meters to a property. Now if you go by the old Comunidade, the Comunidade could not give you a 10 meter. So such amendments I can understand very well. But there is something which also adds, somewhere, that as per rules, that is to me is very worrying. See, when you make a code and then say that you follow the code and the rules, the problem is these rules are delegated legislation. They are not framed by the house. Some officer sits in his cabin, drafts rules whichever suit the convenience of their masters. Then they are so-called placed on the table of the house. And no one even reads them except lawyers when need be. No one knows those rules when they're just lying there.
Yes.
Now, often these rules are oblique. They contain things which enable the secretaries. So if you go, they'll cite the rules. But the rules themselves may be violative of the law. Because, they are often made in such a way that they are either violative or they are nearly violative. And this rule-making provision gives the ministers abundant powers to frame rules that suit them. So according to me, it should be that whatever you want in the rules, put in the code itself, so that we know. Rules is a way of hiding things and doing things through subterfuge.
Okay.
So overall, I mean, the whole
you have your doubts.
is an exercise
yes.
in exercise to further the interests of those in power.
Since Radharao brought up the issue of the Comunidade, the code and the rules, just one point here is that the Comunidade is a code that has about 660 articles, whereas the Constitution of India has about 395 articles. So you know how complex this can really be. So Tulio, do you share the views expressed by Radharao Gracious?
See, I'll go on a little different angle. Dr. has expressed some views which are a bit general in nature, and I appreciate his point that, and he has cited also, just like the Communidades, whether it's the town planning, that the government is framing some amendments or doing some or rules thereof in the interest of somebody in power who needs to be satisfied or who needs to be protected. But I will come a little more detail on the Communidades by itself, because that was a general thing for all. See, the Communidades are today protected and governed by a codified legislation. The last one was done on 15th of April 1961 under the Legislative Diploma of 2070. Now that was the last one. Earlier there was a Código de Comunidades which was approved in March 1933 under Legislative Diploma of 651, 30th March 1933. Before that, there was a Código de Comunidades aprobado en Portaria 1st of December 1904, provincial number 315. And the first known reference to the Communidades was as early as 1526 through the Foral that was published by the Portuguese government. Now, if we know the history, Portuguese had come to Goa somewhere in 1510. So, as early as within 15 years of their stay here, they had already gathered and grasped that there was an existing system of governing agricultural land. I'm using the word agricultural land. Agricultural land, they were cultivable fields or they were grazing pastures, and these together formed entire concept of agricultural land. It included maybe some water bodies for pisciculture or allied activities which are within the general ambit of what we term as agriculture activity. Now, when an age-old institution that was prevalent in the state, we say, as per the history and whatever, we have done some work on that, and many others have very eloquently and very descriptively provided information on that. It's something like 2,000-year-old bodies which had been entrusted with the task of providing gainful employment, carrying out agriculture in an economical and profitable manner, and the state and Goa was self-sufficient in its needs of the produce. Today, there have been massive interventions in the form of these amendments, not only to the code but some other legislation which was purported to be land reform, which has provided no relief to the agriculturist. It has been detrimental to the cause of agriculture in general, and above all, we see the results, disastrous results. I'm not going into the amendment immediately, because let us first understand what was Comunidad. Comunidad, as I see it, was a very honest attempt by our forefathers to hold agricultural land in common trust and common ownership, so that agriculture would be viable and profitable.
So I'd like to come to Rui about this.
Yeah.
Now, Rui, he talks about agriculture and Comunidades looking after agriculture through community-owned land.
I agree. Yeah.
At the time of liberation, agriculture was huge. It contributed about 35% to the GDP. Today, it's just 3%.
Yeah.
So, have the roles of Comunidad now automatically changed from agriculture to housing?
Yeah, I'll explain to you, because see, the land revenue came, they brought the land revenue code. I have to also inform you that when legislators make laws and want to make amendment of laws, there is a Constitution of India. In 61 by a Parliament Act, okay, in December, I think, 12, in 61, that was after the this code, that is 270 of April 61. Soon after liberation, there was an act of the Parliament where Code of Communidades, which was existing, was adopted by the Parliament. It was not repealed. It was adopted, right? Now I have to give you, I am coming to the agriculture side, but I have to give you an example. The Portuguese being here and the British being in India. The Portuguese did not bring any land. It was already existing, like Tulio has explained, under the Code of Communidades. Okay. Now when the British left in 1947, they gave India independence and they gave the land of all over India to the government of India, but with the exception of Goa. Now when liberation took place and Portuguese moved out, they had nothing to give to the government of Goa, neither to the central government. So in 62, 61, 62, they should have formed the revenue administrative districts or revenue district administration, which was not formed. Instead of forming that, why did it not form? Because there was no grant of land from the central government to the government of Goa or to the Goans. Neither the Goa government had any land to give to its people, neither to the Gaonkars. Okay? So, we come under the civil administration, that is deputy collector. They brought
Rui, what I'm trying to ask you is, how is the role of these comunidades changed from being
because they brought the
agriculture to now housing?
Land Revenue Code came, I had reached there, land revenue. First they passed the Tenancy Act, okay, which paralyzed you see, till today, the tenants and the landlords are the comunidades. Okay. Now, tenants cannot do anything because they need permission from the landlord. Okay. Landlords are, which were getting revenue, agricultural, as he said, agricultural communities, they were village communities, that revenue of the comunidades stopped. Okay. And that question, now the Land Revenue Code has been brought, in fact, another code to paralyze this code. Now this code is a law, Code of Communidades. Now agriculture income which was there and the whole agriculture, including the bonds and everything which were being repaired by the comunidades, okay,
it all stopped.
It
All this
stopped, everything stopped.
Okay.
And now they are going to housing, as you said.
Okay. Further, so what are your initial thoughts on this amendment and the fact that the Goa economy is changing, it's modernizing, it's moved away from agriculture to services and manufacturing. How is that impacted on comunidades?
We have to always bear in mind the original spirit through which or by which our ancestors had formed them. They prepared this land and gave it to us, posterity. Here, Communidades are the most heritage institutions of Goa. There is nothing else in Goa so ancient as Communidades. And Dr. Simon D'Souza, who was working for NIU, he has said that Kazan lands were formed 3,000 years before Christ. So such an old institution which has given everything to Goa. Whatever we are today, all our heritage which we are speaking, it has come from the Communidades. Communidade may be Portuguese word, we call it Gaonkari system. So, despising all that and finishing with all that through our legislations is ungratefulness to the mother, which has nursed all this whatever is in Goa. So I feel government has to should think over whether they are really serving Goa or despising Goa. For what? Any government is there for the good of the people. Otherwise, there is no need of any government. We were ruling ourselves without any government. So many centuries before, when the rulers came to on the scene in the 3rd century before Christ, the Ashoka Empire. Still, we were ruling ourselves. We were not bothered about the ruler. Even during Portuguese time, we have not seen the Portuguese in our villages as such. We were not affected by their rule. We were ruling ourselves. So why immediately finish all this? The economy was profitable, agricultural economy or whatever it may be. Needs of the people were fulfilled, food needs and other things. Maybe we had not many jobs, but that they had to migrate. Now also we have to migrate. What is the difference between that and this? So I feel all of us, whether government or Gaukas or all Goans, so-called Goans, real Goans, should work to preserve this institution. No doubt we may have to modernize some things because things have changed, but not the way the government is doing, bringing amendments and this and that to finish with our land. Land is a very precious commodity in our smallest state of India, which is Goa. And I can tell you something which is a record in the Goa Assembly also. On 15th April 2013, Parrikar is on record in Goa Assembly that out of 3,703 square kilometers comprise the area of Goa, only 362 square kilometers are available for future development. Now, from 2013 till 23, 10 years, how much is left? Has the government done any study on this? Just giving permissions for construction, buildings. We are finishing with all
We'll get to that. Okay, rather I need to ask you on this. Now, there is a new article that has been introduced. This is Article 334C. Okay,
There are
which
two articles.
yeah, that's
334C.
but I'll tackle C first, which basically allows the government, with the consent of the Comunidad, to take land, to grant land by way of long lease for any public purpose. Is this an attempt by the government to actually bypass the land acquisition laws because they are very stringent? And
You see, what happens is, again, as I have said, that rules business will come here. See, they can't simply pick up and give. They'll have to frame rules. Rules will be framed which suit the interest of whoever wants the land grants. Now, I don't think they can simply, government can simply take away something that is not theirs and hand it over to someone without compensation. So they will have to frame rules to show what is the compensation payable to the Communidades. And maybe the consent of the Comunidad is required. So this is another shortcut to finishing the Comunidad. You see, I would like to go a little detail into this. See, what happened, this process of destroying the Comunidades began immediately after the liberation of Goa. Now, when these Communidades were formed, that time actually there was very little administration as such, in the sense that, see, the government was non-existent. Each village was a government by itself. So the people got together and to administer themselves, to look after their assets, they formed Communidades. They were not written rules or something. It was just oral. Villagers would sit and allot land among themselves. When the Portuguese came, irrespective of what everybody says about them now, the Portuguese were a very civilized people. They did not try to destroy. They tried to safeguard what they found, what was good in the local customs, and codified the Comunidade code so that everything was placed in its perspective. That is why, as you have said, there are 600 and odd articles. See, they have gone in detail into it. So they were the ones who protected. They were very protective of local customs, interests, and usages. Now, as against that, immediately after liberation, what happened was, there was and there still is a misconception that the Comunidades are organizations of upper castes. So what happened after liberation? The MGP came to power. Essentially, MGP was a party where the subaltern castes got together and he started attacking the upper caste. That is the reality.
Yes.
It was a formation of government. So once they got in, they wanted to destroy the Communidades. So they brought in that Fifth Amendment to the Agricultural Tenants Act. That is where ruins of Communidad began. You see, earlier what was the practice? Each Comunidad village had vast paddy fields. They were auctioned at periodic intervals, and they were made available to cultivators for specific period, 3 years, 7 years, 10 years. So if I was landless and if I wanted to cultivate, I could bid at auction, take it. If I didn't want to cultivate it, it would return back to the Comunidad, third person would take it. Now what this Fifth Amendment handed over all the Comunidad land to tenants in very small parcels. Today they are not cultivable because it is not practical, not economical. The lands are lying fallow. If the Communidades had still existed, they could have given out large parcels of land for a longer period to anyone who was willing to cultivate. See, this was the first beginning of Dayanand Bandodkar and Shashikala Kakodkar started a process of destroying Communidades. This is the reality. We may not be willing to accept it. And the misconception again is that the Communidades belong to the upper caste. This is not so. You see, if you come to Salsette, I will talk only of Salsette. Various villages have Communidades. And the Communidades were formed by settlers. Now, in those good old days, the settlers initially, they were clans of the same caste. Kshatriyas went and settled somewhere here. So those villages became Kshatriya dominated. Brahmin settled somewhere, those became Brahmin. But there are also Shudras and Gaudas who settled in villages and are Gamkas of those villages in Salsette.
Absolutely.
There are 3 or 4 villages in Salsette where the Gamkas are Shudras. There is Dikarpali and Davorli where the Gamkar is Gaudo.
Yes,
So it is not correct. Now you have Dramapur or Thelauli or Kavelusim villages where the Shudra is the Gamkar as per the official records.
But
so it is not true that only the upper caste were. It is not so. The first people who came there, they organized themselves into villages. So if you didn't come first, see now we are there here. We have people from outside coming. They can't accuse us of saying you have taken away everything. We are here because we are here first. You come now. You wait in the queue.
Correct.
Tulio, okay. As far as the Article 334C is concerned, first it says is you have to take the consent of the Comunidad. Second, it says is that the land is only for public purpose. So, and what Radharao just pointed out is that you will get there has to be some compensation. So, what is the problem? Why are Comunidades actually miffed about all this? Why are you against it?
In fact, we are not against anything. The government should be grateful that all, not I won't say all, but majority of the government public projects that have come, the Comunidad has very willingly partnered the government in providing land all these years. For the last 60 years, the Comunidad has never come very obstructively and blocked the government in the development plans of the state. The Comunidad has very willingly lent a helping hand to the government to carry on with the development activity of the state, which we understood and was conveyed to the people at large for the public good.
So why is there opposition to this then?
There is a way to do it. There is a way to do it. First of all, there are public projects which are coming, which are infrastructure projects which are going to be for the well-being of the community, the state and of national interest. Then government in its public good or public cause will acquire land for housing board, for industrial development corporation or for some sports authority, and government conducts business on these lands. Government conducts business on these lands. Correct me, Doctor, if I am wrong. Now, why will Comunidad provide land to the government at meager cost for the government to explore development and business without making the Comunidad as a stakeholder in such a business?
Okay, so your only issue.
Derek,
okay.
Let me complete. We, as I said, have not, I am talking as a Goa as a whole, never blocked the government. But today, when government is further trying to amend the act and bring in some very draconian measures like these to take over government land in public interest, now why is this let the government come out with a white paper on what are these type of public projects that the government has in its development agenda for the next 5 years or 10 years. Only then, your government cannot keep the people of we are a democracy, we are a mature democracy, and we, the people of Goa, people of the state, as much as the Gaunkars and the Jonoers or the components as a whole of the Communidades have a right to know what is the preamble, what is the motivation that pushes the government to bring in this type of a legislation. That means there are some immediate projects which the government, because government has even amended the law to provide for land acquisition or provide for grant of Comunidad lands. Comunidad lands can be granted as plots to certain categories of individuals who are landless and XYZ.
So what
and the government can also provide even without auction, Communidades can provide land without auction to institutions with a ceiling of 2 lakh square meters, which for some government projects was even raised at that time because the government wanted to bring the IIT in Lolia in Kanakana. And what happened? Ultimately, the public resisted, objected, and saw that they are not interested in that government project. Now, I'm talking about as prestigious as the project. Because government is not able to reach out to the people and explain to them what exactly they have in mind when they mean public.
So what I understand from what you're saying is you have no objection to public projects.
I won't concur.
But as far as business is being conducted on them, you have a problem. He has a problem. So basically, what I understand from him is saying is, look, if you are going to do business or you are going to make money on it, then either make the Comunidad the stakeholder or pay a proper compensation. Are you okay with that?
No. See, my views are like this. Your first point was by bringing this, whether they are trying to bypass the
land acquisition.
Okay. Certainly, they want everything easy. Under the Code of Comunidad, Article 652 has a procedure wherein the Gaunkars through a commission will amend. So if they have any proposal, they have to send to individual Comunidades. Okay, that procedure was not followed. Now this particular 344 they are bringing, okay, and they are saying that we will take on lease. First of all, we give for usages. Code of Comunidad, like Dr. also has said, we give for usages. Lease creates a right, legal right. If I am wrong, Dr. will correct me. But usage doesn't create a right. Now here, and they say that they will pay compensation. Derek, I want to ask you, you are a owner of a car and you want to sell it. You will fix the price for it, right? And then sell it. Same way, since there is no land grant from the center, neither the state, and if the government wants to use, it is the general body of the Gaunkars who has to fix the price and tell the government, okay, you can take it for this price. Now, Land Acquisition Act, I'll tell you. In Porvorim, Land Acquisition Act is used many times, was used for communal land, for under poverty, for poor people.
Yes.
Today, if you see the bungalows, all rich people are staying there. If you see in Nuve, they acquire land in the name of the poor, and housing board sells it to the rich people.
I just like to add. See what happens now. The concept of public purpose itself needs to be completely defined. Now, normally for me, a public purpose would mean you want to make a road for public usage, fine. You want to set up a school or a college, fine. But what happens here is, an industrialist wants land for setting up an industry. Now that industrialist has his own money. The law is there allowing land acquisition. So if the industrialist wants land for industrial purpose, let him acquire it through the Land Acquisition Act and pay the price. Government cannot make it into a public purpose and allow him to
take it.
No, I will want to add a few more. Yeah. I will give one classic example. In the 1970s, huge tracts of land at Sankwal were acquired and given to Zuaris. About 30-40 lakh square meters. Zuaris used only 10% of that land. Now they are making plots, and land which they had acquired at 40 paise per square meter is being sold at 40,000 rupees per square meter.
Correct.
So those people are making profits. That also includes Comunidad land. So this sort of thing should be avoided.
So,
Derek,
one second, I'll get to
will-
further.
no, no,
I'll get
I
to
know.
one further.
If that
I'll
is
get
not
to-
a scam,
Yeah.
what it is? And that is exactly what I was trying to tell
Right.
you, that when government brings such draconian things, is exactly Dr. has elucidated that with an example. This is exactly the beginning of a scam that is going to come.
Total whole Goa is a scam. Even if you see the Agarwal Sada Goa, 1 lakh square meters were purchased, and on condition they would employ, and they had
Tulio,
retrenched.
Yes.
since you're talking about scams, I mean the impression that many people try to give is that the government are the bad guys, the Communidades are the good guys, and there's absolutely no scam in a Comunidad. They are totally above board. That is not true. That
says
is
so?
not true. Yes.
says so?
So Comunidad committees are actively involved in selling of land. I have FIRs in Nerul. There are memorandums from Arvale.
Cellular Comunidad is a whole big racket.
Big racket.
Yeah.
Then
So, but I
there
don't
in
think-
Saligaon, the Democles sword hanging over on big commercial projects. So father,
See, Derek,
father,
this cannot happen without the active connivance
Connivance
of
Or the
the-
politicians.
yes, very
Also
true. But it
politician.
cannot also happen without the active connivance of
No,
the Comunidad.
See,
Do
there
you all
is-
agree on that or not?
Yes, yes.
No, where's the question of not agreeing?
Oh.
If somebody is guilty of
Guilty.
contravention of the law, he is guilty.
He is
And,
guilty.
and that is the reason why, when you didn't go in detail, I am sure you will
Yes.
go, the amendment of Article 70. Article 70 provides for a very summarily dismissing a Comunidad and bringing an administrator.
Yeah.
For what reason?
Doctor.
Even government.
Derek,
Rather,
I
do you
will-
agree with what he's saying? Because he's not saying it completely.
What
So,
completely-
no, I
He's
will-
given you
I'm
only
saying-
one clause. You
See,
tell me.
Yes, yes.
You
What
tell
happens,
me.
no, Derek?
Yeah.
It is indeed very true that without a connivance of the Comunidades, you cannot have scams. Just like without the connivance of the voters, you cannot have scamsters ruling us. It is the
True.
same thing.
Yes, it is
See,
the same
there is
thing.
there are scams at every level.
Yeah.
Every level they scam. Voters start it, scamsters sit there, then they use the Comunidad components, they use the Comunidad members, all of them to follow what they want. This is routinely happening here.
So,
And this
so
has happened only after
he brought up this issue of Article 70, which gives the government the right to dismiss a committee
Yeah.
of the Comunidad. Now, it's being projected that the government can at random just dismiss a committee. Is that correct?
No.
Is that the correct position?
See, they cannot.
No.
I would tell you, simple thing I would do in my community. If government says you are dismissed, we would have a general body meeting and bring the same people again. So government is trying to, this is interference. You know what is poking?
Yes.
So
Yes.
they are trying to poke. They cannot do that. What Tulio said was correct. Under the, you cannot bring just amendment. As I said, 652 is the procedure laid down by the Code of Comunidad, okay, to amend. And government has to get back.
Look
to-
here,
to the-
Derek. If you go through the Comunidad Code,
Yeah.
in the preceding articles, there is a clear laid down. You mean to say all this time that any wrongdoing of the committee could not be detected or brought to book? There is a process there.
So that's
That the-
no, I'm not on that point.
No,
I'm not
no.
on that point.
Why have
I'm
you
saying
brought
is-
another law when you are there is a normal process of the law? There is an existing criminal procedure code of the government to, after the normal inquiry process under the code is completed and somebody is found prima facie guilty of any wrongdoing, there is a criminal procedure code of the state which can deal with
Deal
such
with
a
them.
criminal
Yes.
activity. And why you bring this dismissal suddenly? Is it
Yeah.
something which
But
you
Tulio-
require to
Tulio-
quicken and bring a government officer to sign some
Tulio,
papers?
an
fast?
excuse.
Tulio, this
Excuse, they need
this
an excuse.
amendment to that clause, to Article 70, is not an amendment to the main article.
Yeah.
It's to a clause.
Yes.
So it says, 70 says, when a committee fails to meet two consecutive times on the fixed days, then a resolution would be taken to propose the dissolution of the elected part of the same committee.
See,
So
that-
my understanding, doctor can help me out here,
The
is
main-
that if you don't have those two consecutive meetings,
Yeah.
this amendment to Article 70 will not come into play.
the core issue is, have you given any, is there a state grant of land, you can do it. You can make laws when you have the land in your ownership. You have not given any grant
No,
of land to the code of community.
No,
So
that's
you
not
cannot.
What do you say about this? Article 70, this amendment to the clause is just an amendment to a clause in Article 70. So, main Article 70 says is you will come under inquiry or dismissal if you don't have 2 consecutive meetings. So, if you always have these meetings,
There's no
this
correlation.
clause will never come into
Never
it. There's no
comes.
con-
See,
we
So,
have
why
any-
is it been
No,
projected
no,
as
but
the government can
but the powers
dismiss a
there are given
community?
for
For
whom?
general body
The
meetings,
powers
yeah.
are given to the general body. no?
General
If-
body.
If 2 consecutive meetings of the committee are not held,
Yeah.
then the general body can re-elect, no? Something like that.
Governor General.
No, no,
I mean,
Governor
Governor General has got delegated powers.
Yes,
as a
Delegated
governor.
powers.
Yes. So
See-
therefore, you remove those malfunctioning fellows, and again the powers are with the to elect, no?
Gaonkar.
Yes.
Gaonkar. So
Yes,
that
so-
what-
Doctor, my
4
point
general
is
bodies
very
are there in a
simple.
year.
Okay.
The law of natural justice provides that if even is somebody guilty of some wrongdoing, he has to be provided
Explanation has-
explanation,
Yeah.
hearing, some sort of a process of deciding that somebody is guilty. And today, until and there is
There is a process.
no,
there is
an
a
appellate process also.
Yes,
on that.
there is a
And what
process.
I'm saying is, when the government themselves have an elaborate system where even charge-sheeted representatives of the people can continue to rule over us till such time that they are finally pronounced guilty by appropriate court of law. Where is the question of short-circuiting the whole process
Yeah.
only for the community?
There is no question at
Okay.
all.
Short-circuiting for the
Okay,
community
okay.
Question
because
there-
that
there is
particular committee,
interference.
that particular
Okay,
committee
okay.
is becoming inconvenient. He is not willing to bend or crawl when asked to bend,
Okay.
and
Okay,
you
I-
need to be replaced
There is
now.
this. We are running out of time, but this is this issue that has I've asked this question before, but it's not really been answered. Agriculture was the main base of Communidades. That has shifted. Today, agriculture contributes just 3% to the GDP of the state. So, the main basis of Comunidad, the main reason or the has shifted from agriculture to housing. Has the code kept pace with this change?
Can I just
Wait, first I'll get to, let's get to father first, yes, because he talked about destruction of land and land
Because
left
I
for
have
development and all. Father Visita sir, tell me.
See, agriculture has reduced to say 3%. Who is responsible for this? The wrong legislation government has brought. Agriculture Tenancy Act, just now we spoke about that. The Land Revenue Code. All these have contributed for so first the culprit or the first responsible. He should accept this responsibility. So why blame us?
Radha Rao, what are your views on that? The economy has
I don't
moved,
know.
it has
I think-
changed,
I think
it's modernized.
It is a natural corollary of what we call progress. You see, in the old days, societies were agrarian, and as we can see, agriculture did not satisfy Goa's economic interests. Huge number of people had to migrate out to earn an income, at least in my part of Goa. Large number of people were in East Africa, West Asia, wherever, because agriculture did not provide a sustenance. So automatically now we have moved into an industrial age. So the government ought to have first and foremost have a plan. What is the holding capacity of Goa? How many people can stay here? Just because people come in, you go on building houses for them is not the correct way of doing things. We should have said, all right, we are this much, our area is so much, we can sustain only X number of people. Now if more people come, it does not mean you destroy the comunidades. You stop them from coming. Or you provide maybe even houses which go vertically higher up, instead of 3 stories, 10 stories, if that is the case. But what is happening now is that people come, they are permitted through connivance to go and set up shacks everywhere. You see, all these slums are being set up in Comunidad lands. That is where government should have come down with a heavy foot and knocked off all slums. That is not what is happening. All somehow everybody closes the eyes. Those who are in the slums become voters. Unfortunate part is there should have been a law which said if you are illegal immigrant without house of your own, you can't vote here. If that was done, there wouldn't be any of these mess that is going on. Because these people have vote, they have vote bank politics, the ministers, MLAs back them, and illegalities continue. Look, take away their right to vote. If you don't have land here, don't vote here. Then see what happens. No one will back them.
What do you say, Rui? What do you say about this? There is this movement. Okay, now agriculture is not as important as it was before. Okay, so the role of comunidades has automatically changed. So you have to move into housing, you have to move into construction in order to pay the dividends or the zone to your members.
Yeah.
How is Communidades' role? What do you envisage? How should it change?
See, Communidades have been serving the people, the natives, the Gaonkars, as well as some settlers who have come. They have been giving. Now, every village, every state has a holding capacity on the land. Okay, and the land is owned by the Gaonkars, by the Communidades. Now, Panchayat Raj Act has come there, and I will show you illegal constructions which in Communidades land being allowed. Even what is known as Fukad Nagars, even what government acquired land, they are illegally, and they are selling it and renting, and there are rentals in every village, and they are earning the money. So my question is that you have to regularize this thing, see how much holding is there. But I would like to quote this to you, that the government of Goa, before the Supreme Court in Jaspal Singh versus State of Punjab, they filed an affidavit, Chief Secretary, in 2011, that they would remove all the illegal construction. They quoted the Communidades, and there was a judgment passed by the Supreme Court in 2011, which I have a copy, I will produce to you also, any of the panelists here. Okay, and they said that this original land all over India, they had sent notices to every chief secretary of every state that there were ponds, for holding water, there was agriculture, there was this and that, which should be preserved. There was common community land. Communidades land is a common community land, which should be preserved. Now, they have bypassed their own affidavit before the Supreme Court. They have bypassed the Supreme Court judgment, and they have got into business. This land now today for housing has become very big business, because the TCP I am bringing. I had written to the TCP also.
I'll ask Tulio on this. Tulio, what is wrong with this? What is wrong with Communidades giving land to build houses and other constructions?
See,
when the economy is moving
we
forward,
are
people need houses. What is the problem?
There's no problem.
Which people?
Please understand. We are digressing from this. There is every activity, economic activity of the state has got its place. One cannot stamp into the jurisdiction or stray into the jurisdiction of the other. The Communidades basically are Communidades agricolas. They are agricultural cooperatives. They have an assigned, defined task and role as envisaged by our ancestors and codified by the rulers in the earlier times. Now what I am saying is, when we found that, or the government found that there were some people needing some plots or some residential houses, a saving provision has been introduced to provide plots to some category of Gaonkars or residents or government employees, so that immediate demand could be met through this saving provision. Now you cannot convert the main preamble of the Communidades, which is Communidades agricolas, to conduct, protect the agricultural activity of the state and the agricultural land, right from the cultivable lands to the orchard lands, grazing pastures, or the ponds and other pisciculture activities, which were the agors, and the related activities like the waterways, the sluice gates, and all that was within a system that controlled and permitted equitable use of the land, and agriculture being of the prime importance to the defined use of this. Why this is? Because then you bring another activity as the main preamble to this. You are totally destroying what. And today, in these times when agricultural land, orchard lands, hill slopes, eco-sensitive zones are sought to be protected, I think there is no other better way than providing some more teeth and some
To
more
the-
strength to the Communidades to
Communidades.
bring about this change
Yes.
and keep Goa for our future generations.
I agree
This is
with you.
exactly what we need to do.
So there
I
you are.
agree with
Okay,
you.
Father, you're last. You get the last word. You get the last word on. So you agree with him. So okay, I just like to say thank you to all our panelists, Mr. Radha Gracious, Rui da Gama, Tulio, and Father Vicentasa Montero for being with us and making this debate on Comunidades are very interesting and very lively. Thank you.
Thank you.